This is a special video. I am very proud to bring you on a tour, our private tour of the Armed Forces Military Museum. It is a hidden treasure just outside of Tampa, Florida. All the artifacts in this museum are authentic, they are real. This is a tribute to everyone across the world who served in the armed forces. We thank you. We're going to go back to World War I. We're going to walk through a trench, World War II. We're going to see some really cool ships, tanks, machine guns, massive firepower, Vietnam. We're going to see Saddam Hussein's original uniform. We're going to get a private tour with my buddy named Frank, who is the historian at the museum. If you're in the Tampa Bay area at all, please take the time to visit this museum. The link is below. It is amazing. I'm telling you, you're gonna really like this. Just sit back and relax. I wanted to give it all the time it deserves because the one man who purchased all of these items you're about to see, I mean, incredible. It's incredible. It's like Walt Disney World Productions we're going to go into. The one man who did it all donated it to the museum so that our children and history can remember all the wars, major wars in the past 100 years. Relax on this one and enjoy it, and I think you're going to like it. I went through a lot to make this for us. Welcome to weaponseducation.com. This is going to be one exciting video. I am just outside of Tampa, Florida. I am at the Armed Forces History Museum. Frank, you're the historian. It's a pleasure to be here. They invited me to come here. I flew in at the Tampa airport. Here I am. This is the premier museum that really gives a lot of support to our military, all the veterans. It's a privilege for me to be here. Frank, tell us how this whole museum came to fruition.
Well, I want to start off by saying, Tom, I appreciate you. I love your videos. They're exciting, they're educational. I really do appreciate you coming down here. This museum was started by a great patriot, a great Marine by the name of John J. Piazzi Sr. He served in the United States Marine Corps. He was in armor, and when he got out of the Corps, he ended up in business, being very successful, and he just loved everything about the military, everything about our country, and he started accumulating this gigantic collection. 90% of everything outside and inside with his personal collection, which took him 55 years of his life to put together.
He donated the whole thing.
Yes, sir. He donated it to fulfill two main missions. Number one, to honor the men and women that have served our great country, and number two, which we feel is very, very important, and that's the education of our young, so they have a better understanding of the sacrifices made.
I noticed you had 2 school buses here earlier,
right,
which is great. You're educating the young and letting them know about history so we don't forget all about our veterans.
Absolutely.
What else can you tell us?
Well, we have over 125,000 authentic pieces inside this museum. All of our equipment, and with the exception of our aircraft, is operational. We have our own restoration shop. We have tanks, we've got half tracks, we've got this great MA. And tell you a little bit about the MA. This was a reconnaissance vehicle used during World War II in the Korean War, built by Ford Motor Company. And what I mean by a reconnaissance vehicle, this would be a 4-man team that would go out there, scope out the enemy. You want to stay low-key, stealthy, and then you report back. You didn't really want to engage the enemy all too much.
It's pretty thin, actually, right here.
Yeah.
And then this is really strong here.
Right. It
so
can resist small arms.
What is the total
A little
weight?
bit over 17,000 pounds.
Top speed?
Top speed, it's about almost 60. About 56, 57 miles per hour.
All right. What do you got up here?
Well, firepower. We got the 37mm primary gun. I've got a 50 caliber Mod Deuce up in the top, and juxtaposed to the barrel there, I got a 1930 cal.
And everything's operational here except the aircraft?
Except the aircraft. We've got a MiG-21 right over here, MiG-21, which was operational up until a few years ago.
MiG-21. Fly me home in this puppy.
You can get home really quick with this, Tom. Yeah, max speed is 1,300 miles per hour. It's the most mass-produced fighter jet of all time. It's still being used by a lot of different air forces throughout the world.
So here we go for a ride on this puppy here, and
we need to scope out the enemy, Tom.
We got to scope out the enemy.
We're going to go and jump in here. We're going to go tear up some turf, and then we'll come back and go inside.
Where are we at now? This is amazing.
You are in the western front of France. We've gone back to the year 1917, and you are in a trench right now. We take great pride in this museum to be as accurate as possible. And what you see right here, this is what a typical trench would look like during that period of time during the First World War. All the items you see here are original, dating back to that period of time. Everything you see, including the blankets, the long john underwear, all the equipment used for communication. We have 4 boxes here that contain personal items that GIs actually used during that period of time. And these trenches would go for miles on end, and they would dig them out by using entrenching tools, small little shovels. And the conditions were horrible.
I didn't realize how deep these things are. What is this, about 12 feet deep?
Yeah, and they would build like little cubby holes, little apartments in here. And some of these men would live in these trenches for months, if not years.
The U.S. was in World War I from 1917
to 1918, to the end of the war.
So 2 years.
The war began in 1914. We've got some great cases over here, some really awesome items I'd love to show you.
I mean, this is better than Disney World. I mean, the quality, how you reenacted everything.
We take great pride in making sure that our visitors experience it as close as it would be if they had gone back in time.
So that uniform is over 100 years old?
Yes, sir. It's about 100 years old.
Yeah, unbelievable, unbelievable.
We honor all the branches, the Marine Corps, the United States Marines. These are all items and equipment that the Marines used during that period of time. And everything you see there is authentic. We also honor the Army, the soldiers of World War I. 2 special pieces here I want to point out to you, Tom. In the very center, you'll notice there is a small book. Bottom left-hand side, the signature of Theodore Roosevelt. On the very bottom here is another interesting piece. This black rubber piece with 2 valves on it, that's an actual gas mask for a horse. You see, they had poisonous gas during World War I, and not only did you have to protect your humans, you also had to protect your animals because we relied on horses to pull the vast majority of our equipment during that time. We also show off the items of Imperial Germany. And we were talking about Mr. Piazzi, how his collection started. His first item is inside this case. First item. That grenade tosser right there is what started it all.
That's amazing.
He got that back in the 1950s, and that drew his interest, and it became his hobby, and it grew and grew and grew into this gigantic collection.
I don't think there's another collection like this in the world.
There's some big ones out there, but we pride ourselves to probably being the largest one in the southeast United States. In the very top of our trench on both sides, you'll notice these metal rods with 4 loops on them. Those actually come from the battlefields of the Western Front of France. Now we're going to go ahead in time, Tom, to that very important date in our country's history. And that date is December 7th, 1941. A day that will live in infamy famous words said by our President Franklin Delano Roosevelt describing that dastardly attack in our base in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. And as you walk into this magnificent gallery, you'll notice below your feet you have wooden decks. Reason being is most ships of war were using wooden decks to include aircraft carriers. What we have here is a rendition of the aircraft carrier, the Akagi. The Akagi is named after a mountain in Japan. It was one of the 3 main aircraft carriers used in that attack in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The white Japanese uniforms you see above, along with these magnificent ships you see in front of you, come from the Academy Award-winning film of Tora, Tora, Tora. Inside these cases, you have 100% authentic Japanese items. There are 0 reproductions. Everything from officers and warrant officer uniforms, samurai swords. I know you're really big into swords. That's an authentic samurai sword. In fact, I had a gentleman say that he was expecting that probably 300 to 400 years old. Sake bottles, all kinds of uniforms, saddles, because some of the Japanese officers would actually ride into battle. Rising Sun flag, Type 99 bolt action rifle, and we even have some uncirculated Japanese currency, still has the bank wrapper around it. We also show off the Japanese aviator and the typical foot soldiers equipment of that time. Now the mastermind, the brains behind the attack of Pearl Harbor, Tom, was this man right here, Admiral Yamamoto.
You know who he is.
Story about Yamamoto. He was educated here in the United States. He went to Harvard. He also graduated from our Naval War College. These 2 chairs you see here in the corner were his chairs from his office in his headquarters in the island of Rabaul, which is close to New Guinea.
Gosh, I'm getting chills in this place.
This is one of the finest pieces we have here.
I just feel like we're going back
Blowing
in time.
your mind, huh?
Blowing my mind.
We also have a tremendous collection of authentic Japanese weapons, Type 96 machine gun, Type 99. This Type 92, I'm here to tell you, is one of the finest in the world. It was probably never used in combat. It's still a fantastic piece. Along with it, we have optics, Nambu pistol, all kinds of items that the Imperial Japanese forces used during World War II.
What do you got here?
We have additional models here. These are cruisers and destroyers. Again, they were used for the movie Tora, 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 the filming of the Academy Award-winning film. And in the center, that is a Tone class fast cruiser. If you watch the movie, you'll see these ships shown in the movie for special effects.
Unbelievable. Let's move on.
Okay.
Frank, where are we at now?
Now we're going into one of our most popular galleries. That's the South Pacific. And this room has a very powerful story, Tom. And I always start off by telling everybody about that famous picture. That's Joseph Rosenthal's Pulitzer Prize award-winning photograph of the second flag raising on Mount Suribachi on the island of Iwo Jima. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the most reproduced photograph in the history of photography. Nothing even comes close. On that photograph, you have 6 individuals, 4 front, 2 behind. 5 are United States Marines. 1 is a Navy corpsman. The corpsman's the medic. He's the one that takes care of the Marines for the medical needs out in combat. 3 out of the 6 were killed within 2 weeks of that photograph being taken. The battle itself.
The battle lasted how many days?
36 days.
And on what day was that photograph
That was on
taken?
the 5th day of battle.
See, a lot of people think that ended the battle, but that was just in the 5th day.
We needed some encouragement. So the guys from the 5th Marine Division were able to get up on there and raise that flag. And when the guys down below saw that flag go up, it just gave them a boost. It just gave them the hope that they can win this terrible battle. It was the bloodiest battle of the 20th century. 6,824 of our Marines, sailors, soldiers, airmen, and Coast Guardsmen died on that island. 19,000 wounded. On the flip side, the Japanese had over 20,000 killed. Less than 1,000 surrendered.
And who witnessed this photograph, and where does he live?
Our dear friend John Residence. He lives 5 minutes away. He's 86 years old. He was in the 5th Marine Division. He was firing a 105 howitzer, and he had his head leaning up at the base plate, and he looked up at Mount Suribachi. He didn't see the flag, and then all of a sudden he saw that flag go up. So he actually witnessed this great historic event.
And he's still alive and he lives close by.
He comes over, he lives close by, he still talks to kids, he loves to talk to our people that come and visit our museum. These are all items that Marines used during the Second World War and also the Korean War.
tell you, it's just totally flabbergasting. Let's move on. That is one gigantic bullet.
You're not kidding, Tom. This is a projectile that comes off of our 16-inch guns of our Iowa-class battleship. This projectile weighs 1,900 pounds. Those guns on the Iowa-class battleship had a range of 33 miles. And the neat thing about this thing is traveling just as fast as their 223 going.
Oh my
about
gosh.
2,600 feet per second.
What does it weigh again?
1,900 pounds, as much as a small car.
And how much powder is behind it?
They put about 110 pounds on silk bags behind it.
What's its range?
About 33 miles.
Wow.
It's pretty powerful stuff.
And what do we have in this room?
This is a whole area here dedicated to our fighting Navy. We have torpedoes, we have an amphibious duck. That's a vehicle that was used during World War II in Korea to do amphibious landings. It could go up to 6-7 miles per hour in the water and up to 50 miles per hour on land.
How many men would that hold?
You could put probably about a dozen or so, 15 maybe, but it could carry equipment. It was like a floating truck is what it was. It was a floating truck. But the key thing in this room is this periscope. We are one of 27 museums in the world that have a functioning periscope.
Show us it.
Come on over. It comes off of a Sturgeon-class nuclear-powered submarine. And we were very, very honored a couple of years ago to have this professionally installed. And Tom, I encourage you to go out there and take a look and see what you see outside.
Frank, where are you taking me now?
We're going to Normandy, France. And as you walk in, you're going to hear the voice of that gentleman I was telling you earlier, Leonard Schroeder, first American to set foot on Normandy. And he was able to record this great message to everyone a few months before he passed away 4 years ago. We've recreated a French village. Give you an idea of what it looked like back in that day of June 6th of 1944.
And this is his voice.
That's his voice. You're listening to the voice. This is giving you an idea of what the beach looked like that day of June 6th of 1944. I always tell people, if you watch that movie Saving Private Ryan, this was the first guy to hit that beach, and he survived.
I feel like I'm there.
He's a great American. Well, that's the experience we want to have here, Tom, is give you that idea of fun plus with history involved. It's a learning process through our museum. These are items that Leonard generously donated to the museum, and I'm here to tell you, these could have easily ended up in the Smithsonian Institute. And I'll point out those items. He wore that helmet when he landed in Normandy. That campaign cover was in his pack. Those are the actual dog tags that bear his mother's name on his next of kin that he wore when he landed on June 6th. That gold piece next to it is a signaling clicker, was in his pocket. That flare gun was also in his pack. But most of all, the #1 item in there, those boots. First American boots set foot on Normandy. And we're truly honored and blessed to have them here for everyone to enjoy. That's a photograph of Leonard a few months before he passed away, and a photograph of Leonard at the age of 25 when he walked into history. He generously donated these things before he passed away.
When you're visiting the Tampa Bay, Florida area, you definitely want to come to this museum. What is the discount for military members?
Military members, if you're in active duty, you're in free. Show your ID card every single day of the year. You walk in at no cost. If you served in the United States military and you retired from the military, did 20 years or more, you also get in free. Just show us your card.
It's very generous. Of course, they deserve it.
Absolutely.
Look at the Sherman tank.
The M4 Sherman tank, the most mass-produced tank in the history of the United States. Between 1941 and 1945, Tom, your country produced 55,000 of these Sherman tanks.
Our country. Your
country did it, buddy. On a full tank of gas, you could take you over a course of 100 miles with a maximum speed of 24 to 26 miles per hour. And this one's outfitted with a big gun. This is 76 millimeter. This is the tank that was made famous by old blood and guts himself, General George S. Patton's Third Army.
You just took the words out of my mouth.
Yes, sir. And I'm going to tell you something also, Tom, that we need to give a lot of credit to the women of our nation. All of us guys were fighting a war. In April of 1945, they were drafting 46-year-old men with children. There weren't enough guys to go around. Our ladies, our women of our nation had to jump in those factories, roll up their sleeves. That's where you hear Rosie the Riveter, we can do it. And they built all this equipment. So I give a tremendous amount of credit to the women of our nation for putting all these things together so we can go win the war and take the fight to the enemy.
What do we got here?
M3 Scout vehicle. You
got
an
everything.
M3 Scout vehicle. We got a Harley Davidson. If you're into motorcycles, that's an authentic Harley Davidson from the 1940s.
A lot of guys are gonna love this.
A lot of guys are into Harley. Yep.
Boy, oh boy.
A lot of great stuff. We also have, I know you love firepower, 50 caliber machine gun, 30 caliber 1919.
I want that on the roof of my house.
You like that? Now, Tom, what you really want on the roof of your house? Quad 50s.
All right, let's
Quad
check that
50s.
out.
This is the M16 half track. This is built by White Motor Company, and what you're looking at is a Quad 50 anti-aircraft gun.
Gosh.
That, even to today's standards, that's a serious amount of firepower. And again, all of our equipment here is operational.
How many men would operate those for?
You usually would have about 3 guys operating. One guy would jump inside. He would twist and turn with it. A few others would assist in loading the ammunition and clearing it if there was a jam or anything.
This is just a taste of the museum.
Oh, this is just
the taste.
The French village here. You hear the Frenchmen yelling at you. You got Germans yelling at you.
Gosh, what do we got here?
That is a German artillery piece. This is a 75 millimeter mountain gun that Germany used during the First and Second World War.
This guy's taking shots at me.
We've got a Panzerfest up there that's trying to take out our Sherman, but I think our Sherman's got a beat on him. The whole farmhouse in there are items that were used by Germany, Nazi Germany, but those of us that are really into firearms and things like that, the great-grandfather of what we know today as the modern machine gun, the Hiram Maxim, is in here. It's one of the finest pieces we have in our museum. The Hiram Maxim, which is what we know today as the modern machine gun. It was used by the British, it was used by the French and the Germans.
So it was water cooled, huh?
That's absolutely correct. It was developed during the 1890s, but it was used in World War I, and some of them were left over and used during World War II.
What are you going to show us now, Frank?
Oh, what we got here is the 40 millimeter anti-aircraft gun. This was used all the way from World War II. It's still currently being used today, believe it or not, by some third world countries. It fires a 40 millimeter. You would insert clips of 4 at a time up from the top, and you would have 2 guys that would be twisting and turning, elevating the barrel back and forth. This is probably our largest machine gun per se that we have here in the museum.
Can I buy that?
You probably could. You could get any of this stuff for the right amount of money.
Oh boy, what do we got here?
Tom, what you got here is a 203 millimeter howitzer. This is an 8-inch gun, and this was used all the way from World War II up until the 1960s. You would have to have a 10-man crew. Each round weighed 230 pounds, and you needed that big, fast tractor over there to pull this massive thing. Had about a 19-20 mile range. We don't build them this big anymore.
So you don't realize how big these things are. I'm talking to the audience right now until you stand next to it. I mean, I'm 6'5", and I'm dwarfed by that.
They're gigantic. They're gigantic.
Gigantic.
Absolutely, a lot of punch right here, and it's our largest artillery piece we have here at the museum.
And what's the range on that?
About a 19-20 mile range.
Yeah.
Give or take.
You got simulators here also?
Yeah, we got a flight simulator. Now, this is a lot of fun for all ages. And what we have here is a flight simulator. It holds up to 7 people. If you ever wanted to experience what it's like to be in an F-18 Hornet and do a bombing mission into Iraq, this is your chance.
And that's all. Where are we going now, Frank?
We're heading to Vietnam, buddy. And as you walk in, you're going to be stepping into our Ho Chi Minh Trail, which was a major supply line that the enemy, the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese used. And it was always changing over the years, over the 12, 15 years that we were involved in Vietnam. That trail was constantly changing mainly because of our bombing missions. And it could be as narrow as this small little path. Now, when you walk into the Vietnam exhibit, Tommy, you're going to notice it's a little dark. And the reason behind that is, believe it or not, the vegetation in that part of the world and a lot of parts of the jungle is so thick that daylight barely gets down to ground level. And as you walk in, you'll be walking in and you'll see all kinds of items that were used by the American forces during the Vietnam War.
Yeah, you recreated everything.
This Jeep is a one of a kind. There was only one made. It was a prototype that was passed on to the Department of Defense. They decided not to go with it, but this Jeep, this model right here, only one built.
And you got it.
And we have it.
So I feel like I'm in Nam right now. I can see how difficult it was to find your enemy. So you'd never know those guys are right there.
Yeah, you got the Vietcong right there.
You'd never know it.
We got some of our hard-charging soldiers going through here, passing by. This case contains items that were used by the enemy, and what I always like doing is showing the kids that one and comparing it to this one, because you can't help but notice how primitive, how simple it is, their equipment. You know, their shoes, their footwear, sandals like the kind that you would have in the beach. That's a homemade bolt-action rifle that someone put together in their hut.
This is one interesting story. What do you have here?
Tom, what we have here is, as far as we know, the only known uniform worn by Saddam Hussein in the continental United States. It was captured by this sergeant here, Army Sergeant Hibbs, who was able to pull it off the dry cleaning delivery guy, believe it or not. And this is one of Saddam's uniforms. You'll notice there in his right hand, he's got a candy bar, a Mars bar. And people ask all the time, what's the deal with that Mars bar? Well, it turns out that was Saddam's favorite candy bar. And when we went through, our troops went through all 60 of his palaces in Iraq, they found thousands and thousands of these Mars bars. So we stuck one in his hand in case he gets a little hungry at night.
Now, he didn't look like that in the ditch, did he?
No, he certainly did not. In fact, we've got some pictures of when he looked in that spider hole. There you go.
And that's an original uniform.
Saddam actually wore that.
Frank, I want to thank you personally for the tour. All of us, thank you. This place is absolutely amazing. Thank you.
Tom, we appreciate you coming down. We love your website. We love your videos. And we're glad you're able to come down here and have a great time. For your audience, check us out, www.armedforcesmuseum.com.
The link
here in Largo, Florida.
The link is below. You fly into Tampa, and it's a 15-minute drive. Absolutely amazing.
Thanks so much.
Checking out.